How's your cold, first of all?
Better. I'm getting back to the gym now.
You're Mr. Healthy. How come this happened?
I don't
Too
know.
much work. So you're overworked. It's got to be that. Oh, the kids are keeping you up. Let
Uh,
me just,
a
yeah.
little of everything. My kids go to daycare, right? So it's bound to happen.
So they're young. Refresh my memory. How old are they, Erwin?
They're now 4, and my youngest will be 3 soon.
Yeah, that's that age where they get everything from the daycare. You don't see me. Here we go, camera. Now you see me. Okay.
Excellent.
And from yeah, background's not so great. Of course, if I could show you that way, you can't see too much snow. The Rockies are just behind me. So, but anyways,
You're at home?
I am. I work from home. I have a life.
Nice. For our listeners'
Yeah.
benefit, we're recording, so for our listeners' benefit, where's home?
Well, home is in beautiful, snowy Calgary. So, hi to all your listeners. First of all, great to be back on your podcast, Erwin.
Excellent. Yeah. For anyone who's not familiar with Pierre-Paul, you just go back to my website, truthaboutrealestateinvesting.ca, and this is Pierre-Paul's third time on the show. So I want to move the conversation ahead for the benefits of our veteran listeners who've heard Pierre-Paul speak before. So we won't go into the beginner stuff as much. I'd like to move the conversation forward again. Like I'd like to move the conversation forward more about updates, maybe
Yep,
what investors need to know in the markets that you're most familiar with, and you're coming to Ontario.
I am. I am coming to your lovely Hamilton, city of Hamilton in May, at the end of May, for my second Hamilton live workshop, 2.5 day live experiential workshop. Pretty excited about that.
Well,
As you may, as you may have heard, that was quite a success last year. The student rated it 9.1 out of 10.
really,
Cool,
that's
cool
it.
event. Cool event. Cool
Yeah,
event.
I want those people who didn't give it 10 out of 10 to like tell me what event was better.
Well, yeah, I really, it's hard to beat, but I'm expecting you there this year, Erwin. Is that possible that you pay us a visit?
My event is actually the same weekend.
Oh, come on. I should have called you before. But
but
it's in Hamilton. You can,
yeah,
maybe we can visit each other.
but this is the amount of respect I have for you. Like I'm willing to totally happy to promote your event, which is the same weekend as mine. It's
Oh
totally
my
cool.
goodness gracious, Erwin, I didn't realize that.
No
Okay.
worries. No, no. This like we don't really cover the same content necessarily, right?
Yeah,
Most of my investors, especially clients, uh, they deal more with like single family or like
yeah,
very small multifamily, a lot of basement conversions, maybe some student rental, some rent to own.
yep.
So like you deal mainly 6 and up, 4 and up,
Yeah,
and then
five and up. It
5 and up.
starts yeah, that bucket of properties is 5 units or more. Yeah,
Mhm.
correct.
And
Yeah.
then what's the area of play that you prefer to stay in? Like 20, 40 units?
Exactly. The bigger, the better, right? The economies of scale are significantly better. Your costs, your operating expenses per unit are lower the more units you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the example I always give is the same boiler, your cost of operating the same boiler per unit goes down as you add more units to your
Mm-hmm.
building.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Obviously, the challenge, Erwin, when you go higher, the challenge becomes that you're playing in the big leagues box, right? So the pension funds like to buy these larger
Mm-hmm.
buildings, like the concrete high rises that you see a lot in GTA and even in
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton. So that's a different ball game. But it's the same principles, the same math, the same approach, the same analysis. But of
Right.
course, you're competing with bigger players that have deeper pockets.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I see on the smaller side, like 4, 6, 10 unit, you know, a couple of years ago, like 5, 7, 8, 10 years ago, anyone with 100 grand could play in that market.
Yep.
But then everyone could basically play in that market, and
Yep.
it was way too competitive. And then about 5 years ago, valuations just got crazy in Hamilton, especially for like
Yep.
anything that was affordable, like 4 to 10 units.
Yep.
Uh, because everyone had 100 grand of home equity line of credit, anyone
Yep.
who
Could
lived in
use that
GTA,
easily.
and then they went out to Hamilton, and then yeah, and then that's been difficult in that. Now, a couple of
Well,
things I wanted to ask you about.
yep.
So
Go ahead.
some things I do want to repeat because not everyone's listened to us for our previous conversations. So some things I do want to repeat.
Yep.
One thing is in our conversations, like it's much simpler to acquire a building. Nah, I wouldn't say simple. I think what a lot of investors think it's really hard to acquire a building. But then I always direct people back to our previous interviews and
Hmm.
talk about, if you are good at what you do, people will bring you business. Because that seems what
And
happens for you,
for sure, that is
right?
exactly the case. Or when I don't, buildings come to me because my reputation precedes me.
Mm-hmm.
Realtors love working with me, just like banks love working with me because I have my act together. I know the process. I don't waste anybody's time. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm professional. That's all I do, as you know. So
Right.
that is key to succeeding. And when I teach this material, this is something I put a lot of emphasis on. And that's why, the way I teach people, it's a blueprint. You follow the script. Don't diverge from the script.
Right.
But then the good news is, yes, some people have a hard time finding buildings. I don't. I may not always want what I'm getting in terms of
Mm-hmm.
listings,
Mm-hmm.
but people know because I have my act together, I know what it entails to buy one of those. I know what the timelines are. You're a realtor, you know what that means, right? When you start, you got an accepted offer, the clock starts ticking. You got to order a bunch of reports. So because I know that process very well as the financing aspect, yes, I don't have to look for buildings that come to me.
Mm-hmm.
But this being said, if I'm not ready to buy one right away, I tell the realtor, you know what, at this point, I'm not in an acquisition mode. I'll pass.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't play around and waste their time. So
Right.
it's a critical component. The
Right.
margin for error is pretty much non-existent in my world, like the world of multifamily, five or more units. You
Right.
just got to walk a straight line, be a straight shooter. Yeah, for sure.
Because you
Yeah.
risk ruining your reputation if you're not the person that follows through on what you say you're going to do. And you may
Uh,
get blacklisted.
and I think this is an expression I use. People who pretended to have taken my course, in my market in Edmonton, never did. And they ended up spending a lot of time with a bunch of realtors. Yeah, that's bad. That
Very
person shall
bad.
remain nameless. And it did happen. And a few realtors took her around, showed her I said her. Okay, it's a woman. Properties. And she did not end up buying. So she was blacklisted. If she wanted to buy something in Edmonton, now it would be a problem.
Right.
It is a small world. You have to realize that the world of multifamily is a very small world.
Mm-hmm.
If you mess up, good luck to you to try to buy another property.
Right.
So,
And just to
hence the
clarify,
reason you need work, mentorship, or you need training.
mm-hmm. And just to
And of course,
clarify about
yeah.
time wasting, I believe a lot of people don't intend to time waste, but to reframe it almost, like for example, someone who's new and has a lot of questions and doesn't know what they're doing. If you want to work with the people that Pierre-Paul works with, they don't have the time to teach you because
No.
they have clients like you. They can just hand a property and you can run with it.
Correct. And they'll go to these people like me who have their act together. But Erwin, this being said, I don't want to jump ahead, but in my training, so as you know, I have a live training program, 2.5 day live training,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be at the end of May, May 25th to the 27th. And then I have an online version. I have within the online version, the online course, there's a planning module, which is quite extensive. And when we do the live event, we actually give the live event students those modules, so the planning module. The reason being that it does require a lot of time to do your homework in my world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's important that people acknowledge that. You cannot just, hey, decide all of a sudden, let's say you were a multifamily realtor, hey, knock on your door and show me. Yeah, indeed, they won't do that. You should have a good idea of what the prevailing cap rates are in your market, how much money you've
Mm-hmm.
got available to purchase so that you can tell specifically the size of property that you're looking for. If you don't have the money to buy a 200-unit building,
Mm-hmm.
well, the realtor needs to know and your banker will need to know. So there's a number of planning steps that need to be taken well in advance before you make a first offer.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when I do the live training, I want to start crunching because the modality of delivery is the actual number crunching, right? We do a site inspection, as you may recall, and then we crunch some actual deals. So I don't want to talk about the planning phase. So we release to the live students the same planning modules that we give to the online students so that we can cut to the chase and get right into deal analysis. So that's pretty cool. Very cool,
Right.
as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been a student forever of everything, and sometimes you just miss stuff.
Yep.
And then you have all the notes online that people can go back and reference, or they
And
can
more
redo
than
the
that,
course.
In my case, when I've been working at this for years to prepare this workshop, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
use the assistance of a third-party international consultant to package it together. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
who's a professional at putting courses together. But in my case, you got to be pretty dumb to miss any steps. The reason being that it's also called a blueprint,
Mm-hmm.
and in a sense, it's the spreadsheet that you go through each of the steps. And you do checkbox. Did I look at the remaining economic life of the boiler? Did I look at the suite layout? Check, check, check. And then you go
Mm-hmm.
to the next risk factors, the market risk factors. Did I look at what are the rents in relationship to market average rents and so on? So in my case, you have to be pretty dumb to miss a step because, literally, and I'm not going to deny that, I have reproduced the same tool that I used to use at CMHC. And my job as a multifamily underwriter was to process these deals super fast. We were clocked, Irwin, how fast we'd get through each of the deal. And of course, if I did well, I got a little bonus, right? This is no joke.
Really?
Literally in the computerized system, the moment you start opening the file, the clock starts ticking.
Mm-hmm.
And my job, I couldn't afford to forget anything, to skip any of the steps, right? Because
Right.
big money is involved. And so that's what I replicated. So just to reassure your students, if they decide to make that step or take that step to buy an apartment building, you're covered with me. That's my job.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you pay me the big bucks.
Very cool.
No, but that's. I mean, it's taken me years to design this and make sure to get it right. I mean, it's no.
Very cool. Now I understand you had Kevin Gachalian speak at the last event. I
Yeah,
asked him at the RAI meetings if I could drop his name, so it's okay.
yeah. Well, so Kevin's a former student of mine, and so my training, and you and I want to get into some of the stuff. The point, yeah. So I'm happy that you're promoting it, but we also want to give content to people. It's important to me and you both. But I bring people like Kevin, and I'm doing this again this time because Kevin, he worked with me. I coached him, but he had a tough time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a very tough time, and sometimes these things.
Well, it would have been worse if without your mentoring.
Well, I worked extensively with Kevin. He's a fantastic person
Mm-hmm.
and a friend by now. But I bring people like that on board so that they can learn from people's mistakes. I personally share my mistakes, right? It's experiential, right? Learning by trying to do as much as possible, short of writing an offer in class. But so I want people to benefit from my experience and that of my former students.
Mm-hmm.
This year, we're having somebody. Unfortunately, it's not a pretty story. It's still ongoing. I am helping out that person. And I want your students to think that I can coach everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but I am by nature just like you. And you're somebody that I look up to because of your generosity. And I want to do something for you live in this. Well, I know it's not exactly live because it's going to be recorded and put up later, but for you. So I won't forget I have a goal here because you're such a generous person. But I'm working with this person right now as we speak, even earlier this week, bought a property. It is in your area,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a total disaster. And unfortunately, it's a nightmare. Oh, you laugh when you would be crying if you knew the story.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, he did take my workshop, but after buying the property.
Oh, okay.
Okay, not before. Okay, and I don't mean this to butter up people to buy my course. I don't need this. I'm like you. I've got my own portfolio. I do love this is a labor of love, this teaching and stuff. But man, I'm trying to help him out, fix the mistakes. But all of them, which had he had a blueprint like the one I teach and
Mm-hmm.
would have avoided stuff that's easy, like
Right.
property risk factor, how poor condition of the building and various other things.
Right.
And believe me,
Hamilton
I
has
did
lots of those poor condition
well.
buildings.
Fortunately, and in your town. The buildings are old, and you got to
Yeah.
know where you're going and where you're shopping and where and what you're buying.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
no offense, but they're older buildings.
Yeah.
Housing stock is in Hamilton. So, but yeah, so it's so Kevin, so this person is going to come and share their story so that people in the classroom can learn. Right?
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to shorten the learning curve as
Mm-hmm.
much as possible to a reality check.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's not make money overnight. This is not what I sell. This is not what I do. This is not what I experience myself.
Right.
This is long-term wealth creation, steady
Mm-hmm.
Eddie.
Mm-hmm. And with our clients, we have the same issues. Like I had a client who last second didn't get financing, and they were lost. They didn't know what to do, And like, well, just like to me, I'm not as good a teacher as you, so I just deadpan. Oh,
Not sure about that.
you just gotta raise the cash, like,
Yeah.
and you say that to someone who's new. So you've done it. If you've done it before, like, I've done that. I've had to do that like twice at least, and I've had a couple clients who've had to go through it before. So I've been through it before. So I'm not that shocked, or I don't get too expressive about it. But for my client, they're like, "What are you talking about? I got to raise like $200,000, and like by Monday, it was Saturday."
Well, and you know that I've been there too, not myself because I raise money easily because of my background and my expertise,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Erwin, these are the kind of surprises
Mm-hmm.
I work hard at making sure that my students do not get into.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the planning that I was talking about when we release it, like as I said, also to the live students, so that they figure these things out. That's why you need to know how much money am I going to get. So
Mm-hmm.
what size of property are you going to buy in relationship to your budget,
Mm-hmm.
to how much capital you have, and you have the ability to raise in whatever time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, when it comes down to the capital aspect of it, I say to my students, raise the money first, put it in a bank account,
Mm-hmm.
because you may know this. I mean, being a realtor yourself, the bank now with the anti-money laundering requirements, they need to know where the money came from
Mm-hmm.
3 months in advance. So
Yeah. They used to not care.
ideally, well, low blower when low blow.
They used to like. In some cases, they didn't ask.
No, well, they ask on my stuff. So you need to ideally have the money 3 months in advance in a bank account, so you
Yeah.
can show the bank that didn't come from some shady country.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
no, this requires a lot of
For
planning,
good
but
reason. For good reason.
for good reason. And
Yeah.
Erwin, I mean, this is feasible by people. I mean, I'm not a freaking Einstein. Yes, I did work at CMHC. I did analyze hundreds and hundreds of deals. But if you have a blueprint, anybody can do this, but you have to do your homework.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of it.
I don't think people understand. So two things, like to come up with a blueprint, a good one, it takes a lot of effort. Like you have to have seen like almost everything in order to compensate for every possible scenario.
And you know what, by the way? So it's never 100%.
No, it's not.
I mean, so what I'm teaching essentially are the principles and the approach to underwriting,
Mm-hmm.
right? So which is, when I say underwriting, it's risk assessment and
Mm-hmm.
risk mitigation.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about Kevin. Well, he took my course. He was a darn good student and somebody with
He's a
whom I
bright
worked.
guy. Yeah, very bright guy.
Really, very bright. And let's admit to absolutely say that. Yet something fell through the cracks despite all of that. So you also
Mm-hmm.
have to be prepared for that, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
What you did, I mean, and the big issue that he faced, maybe let's talk about it. You know his story, I'm assuming. So he faced a building that had a lot of bed bugs.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to talk about bed bugs because it's a fact. You have that problem across the world. It's an issue. And as
Even
a landlord,
5-star hotels.
Exactly. I hate hotel rooms for that reason because all these people slept in those rooms. Anyways, I have a particular disgust for hotel rooms. But the point is, Kevin ended up, none of his due diligence process indicated in the operating statements that the vendor was having an issue. He didn't see invoices for pest control companies. So there was really nothing that could be done.
Mm.
This being said, and again, I won't mention names. I got to be careful because I know lots of people, but even the realtor has a duty, though. This being said, Erwin, and I believe you would be, I know you're highly helpful, to know what they're showing to their client,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And I think that's where there was a failure as well on the realtor's part in that particular instance. It's one thing to collect one's commission, but you got to be ethical. And especially if you want repeat business. So there was also an issue in that regard with Kevin and also the student who's going to come to my workshop to tell his story. So it's you got to have that high ethics, right, in this business. So, but there were some failures there.
Something that I teach the realtors on my team, the newer ones, is what I teach them is don't trust the other realtor. Like, be professional.
Oh my gosh.
No, but be professional. But don't take their word as rule.
Well, can I just interrupt you? Now you're making me smile. I'll go one more.
Yeah.
Don't trust any realtor. And I don't mean this offensively. This is what I tell my students.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. But I appreciate it. So you just made my point. I said that you're a highly ethical person. You just made my point because you're a realtor yourself.
Yes.
And I tell my students, no offense to realtors, because I have lots of friends who are realtors, don't take any of these numbers at face value.
Oh, absolutely
Your
not.
job is to dig in and investigate every single number that the vendor provides you.
Yeah.
And I would say, even what I do, I give you as much as I can possibly conceive. And every year I keep trying to improve my systems. And what else can I offer to my students? At the end of the day, like I said, Kevin, despite having taken my course, being a great student, smart, brilliant person, something fell through despite having all my systems and all my tools. What can you do? Right? So you got to be careful. But yeah, when it comes to realtors, no offense to any of the realtors, your job as an investor is to go through every single number for yourself.
Right.
No filtering, none whatsoever.
Right. And that includes any sort of documentation or financial statement you receive from the seller. Is you have to go through it, and preferably you need someone who knows what they're looking at to go through it. So, for example, I used to see financial statements that would show like a 7 or 10 cap regularly, and then you just dig into it. And just having some common sense, like it's an 1890s building, so it's well over 100 years old, and you see like there's a very small amount of repairs and maintenance. Like that should automatically raise a red flag. There's no property management. No property management, eh? Okay, so tenants just manage themselves.
Well,
right?
And that's not happening with my training. It's very meticulous.
Yes.
And I'll go one more. Because it took me a while when I left CMHC, I could see how we look at valuation from an underwriting and an appraisal point of view, because we follow CMHC, or the banks follow the same approach, the income capitalization approach, as you know. That's commonly used in the business to attach a value to the property. But then as an operator, and that's the cool thing about me teaching this stuff, like, right, the former CMHC insider, but in addition to that, to be a full-time operator of 160 doors, portfolio worth $22 million, there's some stuff missing, right? What about precisely pest control, which is something that all landlords should take into account? Accounting, I mean, it's not cheap, number to have my year-end financials done. It's $2,500, $3,000, right? If you have a good accountant to do that. I also have a bookkeeper. That's a couple $100 a month maybe. And so what I teach is, here's the game of getting financing and the operating expense items that you need. In addition, here's what you need to add. And then once you do the subtraction of your income minus your operating expenses, you get your net operating income, your NOI. And then, you figure out what's your mortgage payment, and do you have a net cash flow? Of course, if you don't have a net cash flow, Erwin, there's a problem, Houston, right? Yeah. Should you buy it? Well, if you think that the market will carry you and you can have an upside at some point in the near future, or something, whatever, LRT or subway, whatever, right? That a market driver that can increase your NOI at some point in the near future, and then eventually your cash flow. But that's a decision that you need to make with eyes wide open.
Yeah.
And but yeah, there's a game being played out there.
Right.
I wouldn't say it's a game, but it's because every building has its own special or peculiar circumstances. But that's what I teach my students. Here's the game when you get the type of numbers you include in your pro forma when you submit your financing application. But in addition, as an owner, here are the additional expense items you need to include so that you have, full picture in the reality that you're facing. Yeah.
And just to provide our listeners some context, people who aren't as familiar with commercial real estate, especially when it gets into like office and stuff, we talked earlier about pensions and REITs and stuff like that. So I have a client who is like his clients are like REITs and pensions. So he'll represent them in purchasing buildings or selling their buildings. And it is just crazy about, I'm just a real estate nerd. So I ask him about like, what deal are you working on? For example, he worked on the deal. So for those who are in Ontario, he worked on the deal for the RBC building in Mississauga that you can see along the 401. Anyone who drives the 401 in that section, they know that exact building. Okay. He worked on that building, like that level of deal, right? So that, It's like the only high rise in the area, so it's at least 30
Yeah.
floors, right?
Yeah.
And he was telling me he was selling a building in downtown Toronto. He said it was a B building. It wasn't even A building, right? A little bit older and stuff like that. And they had like a white room. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but they had basically an office in the building with all the documents that you would need, every single document, and the money that was just flying in for this. And there were buyers from like Saudi, from Australia, all sorts of Canadian buyers, U.S. buyers from the UK, and they're buying cash, no mortgage, right?
Yep.
Because that and I want people to understand is that's why you're trying to stay away from the pensions and the REITs as well, because they are competing on a different level.
People. Yeah, you cannot compete with these people.
Because they have legal teams on staff, for example.
But it tells you a lot about the market, the confidence they have in the market, though, when it comes to GTA, right? I mean, that's one thing as well. But yeah, it's a different game. And even because I know one of the questions you wanted to ask me, I don't know if we're there yet, but I deal with that in my market, right? I invest in Alberta. It's a tough time still in Alberta. And one of the challenges that I'm facing, I do compete with smaller REITs, mind you, like, to name a few, obviously Boardwalk. And then another more of a competitor to me, literally next door to some of my properties, in a few instances, is Main Street Equity. Okay, somebody I know very well because I've insured his deals back in the days at CMHC. But they have deeper pockets as well. So even at a smaller scale, a smaller level compared to, because I know the reality, right? I do get to GTA on a regular basis and went to school in Toronto and all of that. So I know what you're talking about. But even at a smaller level, I face that deep competition because in a downturn like we're still experiencing in Alberta, at least at a rental from a rental market point of view, these guys, when there's a downturn, if times are well, the economy is doing well, our vacancies are low, they hardly spend any money. They're on the verge of being slumlords, okay? I kid you not. But the moment there's a downturn, all of a sudden, oh my God, they dish out a lot of money on their units. They dish out, they do all the great upgrades and laminate flooring and all of that. All of a sudden, they start spending money. Whereas in good times, they're all a bit of a slumlord. And so they can withstand the downturn a lot more than I can. They can lower, provide rental incentives and be very much more aggressive in that regard that I can be, right? So I do face competition with smaller REITs, even where I'm at. Right. Yeah.
So before we move on to like market information, a lot of stuff we presented may seem scary to some folks. So I want people to understand, like even like Kevin Cachillian's example, like he's still glad he has the building, right? Even that everyone runs into problems. It's gonna happen. I had 2 leaks at two of my properties from blowing rain. Houses that never leaked before, but from just from the storms. Problem. Doesn't mean I'm not grateful to have the property, and that doesn't mean that I'm not cash flowing and doing well with it. And I want everyone to remember that still, is you still have to keep your eye on the prize.
And the vision, so you and I both know we're both ambitious, we're both successful, and I'm preparing the marketing for my live events and my online course that I'm about to launch. But that vision drives me. Like, I showed you earlier, I don't know if you were recording, but I'm looking outside right now facing west, so I see the Rockies. I see the field because I live on an acreage. Around me are pictures of me and my family and myself and friends in the south of France that we rented 3 years ago. 3 weeks. Yeah, I mean, it cost a freaking arm and a leg to go and rent an apartment in Paris, visit our friends in Turgeon, rent an apartment in Barcelona. But man, and I have pictures of all of this in front of me, or me hunting with my little guy, shot his first deer last fall, living life. I have that vision that drives me, right? And so when you face these challenges, like Kevin, you have to keep, as you said earlier, keep your eyes on the prize. And that's you and I, and guys like me. I motivate myself every day. I mean, I'll show you what. Maybe you guys, you can't see this, but here's a little thing here. Can you see this? How close can I bring this to the camera? Do you see this?
It's a rock. What is it?
But not just any rock. It's a gratitude rock.
Okay.
Erwin. And this one, I'm so grateful to have it. You know where I picked it up?
Where?
On the shores of Lake Titicaca 2 years ago
Uh-huh.
on a 5-day trek with my son. And then we went mountain biking to Bolivia.
Uh-huh.
That's why when you face these problems like Kevin faced, like I have faced recently with shareholders on a building, that's what I have in mind. And, you know, if I had had time today, I was going to book a couple of trips for my wife and I to Belize, you know, but the point is, when there's a problem, and you know, if people who came to my workshop last year, I always say during my course when I teach, we're business owners. And our job is to solve problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this case, when I'm an educator, my job is to try to make you anticipate what problems you may face, and so to show you how you could resolve them and try to eliminate as many problems before by doing a proper due diligence. But I told my students last year, it was quite a running joke for 2 days. When there's a problem, there's always a solution. If you cannot find the solution, you're part of the problem.
Right.
If you let that sink, and as entrepreneurs and business owners, that's what we are. Yeah. We are problem solvers, okay? But the point is, when you face challenges, then you remember, well, I am free. I have freedom. I don't. No employer owns me, 9 to 5. And to me, like, these reminders are everywhere. I never go anywhere without this rock, because I feel blessed for the life that I have, blessed for the fact that you're accepting to help me out, and I'm extremely grateful to you for that, and trying to spread the good.
Mm-hmm.
and be involved in charity, which you and I are going to be involved, because I have a surprise for you on this podcast.
Okay. We'll get to that. So do you cover some of this? Because one of the things that concerns me about many education programs is it seems overwhelming, right? Mm-hmm. Do you guys cover that? Like, for example, even at other workshops that we've both been to, like, it is overwhelming, but you cannot keep, and then some people get stuck and not move forward. Is that covered in your workshops?
No, it does, because so my job, as I just said, is to eliminate the obstacles for people who want to invest in apartment buildings. So as I said, the blueprint, you have to be pretty dumb to skip a step, because it's designed for that. So you always go back to that. And I have graduate students that tell me they still use it 4 or 5 years after, because, as you know, I've been doing these workshops since 2011. Right. So, but it's to take one chunk at a time. When I teach this stuff, for example, the online material, and you said that earlier, it's short lessons. They're short videos, me coming online. I don't look like Brad Pitt. I apologize, but I do have content. So I come for 5 minutes. You have one lesson, one notion, whether it's cap rate or whatever, one at a time. You digest it and assimilate it. And, I'll be honest. I remember in the old days at Rain, when Russell came out with, remember the joint venture program, right? I was here sitting on my acreage, mowing my lawn. I've got a few acres to mow. And I had a CD player. Remember those portable CD players now? I know I'm old. Look at the gray hair. Like, there's not much left on top, not unlike you, got a full head of hair. And I would listen to these joint venture videos over and over and over and over until I became it. And until now, I can raise millions of dollars to buy apartment buildings, So, yes, it's overwhelming, but my training – I'm not going to deny this. The difference when you decide to make a move to large multifamily properties, yes, there are more moving parts. I can't deny that to you, okay? And I know so, because when it came to time for me to sit down and develop the content, I had to work with this international consultant. We never saw each other. We were always on Skype like this. Of course, I would send him the documents, and he knew zero about multifamily or real estate investing in general. And so I realized he was asking me questions, because sometimes, we know our subject matter so much, we go from A to E without necessarily describing the steps in between. So he had me to take that apart, and I realized, oh my gosh, there's a lot of content in here, right? And it's the reason why I focus when I teach this stuff on what is my core expertise. So the way I address that, it's one step at a time. People come to the live event, they don't have the videos, but they have a workbook with the same content, the same slides. It's always there. And so if you want something badly, you'll find a way to figure it out. But you have to have that burning desire, to use the expression of Napoleon Hill. And I teach this to my children. I have 2 young adults, second one going to university. You want it badly enough, you will find a way. There's always a way.
There's easier ways too.
Well, it's the multiplier effect that we make more money for less effort. Once you've overcome the hurdle of finding the property, raising the money, after that, that's why I can bug off to, Costa Rica or, Peru, trekking and Belize and Europe. And I spent 30 days skiing this year, Erwin.
Wow.
30 days. I think I overdid it, but we had so much snow here. And every weekend, I mean, that's living.
Right.
But you pay the price. And when you face a problem, you say, okay, when there's a problem, there's always a solution. And if I cannot find the solution, I'm part of the problem. Think about that. Let that sink. It's very powerful. And it works. I was not like that when I was in my cubicle at CMHC because it was all mechanical. I was analyzing other people's deals and it wasn't my money. I didn't care. Now it's different. The buck stops with Pierre-Paul every day, all the time. And you know what? You do find if you get that mindset. So I do work to answer your question. Yes, it's a big component of what I do. I feel blessed. I'm trying to return the wealth that I'm slowly creating for myself, trying to return the favor by educating people because it's not commonly available, this type of knowledge that I happen to have. And so I do try to work and motivate people. It's a big, it's part of my mission. My mission, Erwin, is to democratize the access to multifamily investing in Canada. My purpose is to instruct, empower, and inspire, right? Instruct, give you knowledge, and empower, give you tools, and inspire, because without inspiration, there's no action. People don't take action. So I'm very set, there's a definite intention. And last year, because I had this brand new content that was, developed with the assistance of a professional, it was. I think I brought all these students into the zone. It was quite a magical moment. You can ask your buddy Charles. It was, and I'm recreating the same thing this year because I'm coming with that intention of creating an amazing event. And because they're small events, it's important to me to motivate people. If you never end up buying an apartment building using my knowledge, I'm sure hoping that I left you with at least inspiration. How's that? I got to give something to people. And if they're not going to use my knowledge, hopefully I've inspired them for a couple of days or, through my online training.
Right.
But it's a definite intention. I do have the Gratitude Rock sitting on my laptop when I teach.
You need to grab more of them so you can give one to each student.
There's an idea. Okay. I think I should do that. But this one is very beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
Send me a picture of it.
I will.
Or I can take a screen capture of the video. And then send me a picture of your view as well, so I can include that on my website.
Will do. That's cool. I absolutely will do that right this afternoon, my friend.
Excellent. Can you give us an outline of what the 2 days look like? And also, you have another date as well, right? Are you doing it locally for you?
So I will eventually. I'm not there yet, Erwin. I'm a little late. As I said, the challenge that I face personally, this educational stuff is a sideline, right? And this is something I want to mention to people. It's important to understand that first and foremost, I'm an active real estate investor. As a matter of fact, I have a deal that I'm currently refinancing. We're going to send it to CMHC next week. And thank God the Bank of Canada did not increase its overnight lending rate this morning. Thank God, because the numbers were a little bit tight, okay? Hallelujah. I'm safe. So the workshop, again, everything is hands-on, whether it's the online or the live event, and it is experiential, meaning we try to get you as much hands-on experience in assessing various deals. But the first Friday afternoon, we do a site inspection of a building in Hamilton, with a professional building inspector. That building inspector is, bar none, the best inspector I've ever worked with. I have a very good one in Edmonton, but he's nowhere near that guy. That guy actually, the building inspector that we work with, Alan Spizak in Hamilton, he has a law degree like I do.
Really?
He is brilliant. You know Inspector Gadget, the cartoon? Well, he's kind of like that. He's got a work belt with all the gizmos to measure the humidity in the walls and this and that. I'm actually going to shoot a video. I do have a video when you take my online course that I shot with one of my buildings in Edmonton, but I'm going to Hamilton sooner to shoot a video of him doing the full building inspection. So we get up on the roof, we go into the boiler room. The idea is I want you to give my students confidence about assessing the physical condition of an apartment building, because that's first and foremost what you invest in. It's an income producing asset. So we do that the Friday afternoon. That's the first aspect of the course. Then we come back to class, and everybody gets a nice little workbook like this, very detailed with all the slides. So is that, if you can see,
Serious binder.
serious binder, it's thick. And then, my friend, we're not done. It's got a flow chart, right? A bunch of great tools like that. Flow chart, each step, how they feed into eventually getting financing and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, my world of multifamily financing, which is my expertise, is complicated. It can be overwhelming if you try to do all at once, but I provide you with a system to take it a bite at a time. Then, this is financing. Which way you go? You go conventional financing versus CMHC. Here are the differences at a glance. One page. I could go on and on like that. One that you would like as well. This was not planned, but that's my office. So, offer flow chart, because timing is super critical when it comes to multifamily. You got to get your ESA report. I don't know, man. I don't know what else I could do for my students. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
This is love. I love doing this. It's a treat for me, because otherwise I'm in my office here. Don't get out much. But what I get out, watch out. I give you all I got. And by the time I'm done by the Sunday night, which is a 2-day event, so I'm fried because I've given all I got. I am in a zone, and I create a state of zone, and I know I'm going to pull it off again, because now I've got this content. It's professional. So anyway, to go back to your question. So then in class, we go through that. We have a realtor that comes in, talks about the offer to purchase process, timelines, what to watch out for, the kind of mistakes that he sees novice, investors make. And then we get into case studies. My case studies, I do a bunch slowly, one at a time. Again, we play with the numbers in class. Everybody needs a laptop so that they can plug in the numbers. Don't freak out if you don't know Excel. I don't accept that excuse, right? My job is I've solved that problem for you. Green cell, you got to put a number. I cannot put that number for you, but you don't have to come up with a formula. All the instructions how to use the Excel, it's intended for anybody who has the will, the desire, the vision for the life that they want to do this. And we go through case studies. Then I bring in a mortgage broker, because part of what I'm trying to do is help people create their own power team, okay? And in my world, everybody has to be a multifamily specialist, whether it's your realtor, mortgage broker, your banker, your building inspector, et cetera, or your engineer when you get an ESA. So I try to introduce people that come to the workshop to people who can potentially become part of their team, okay? So I have a mortgage broker that comes and also brings new case studies. And of course, we coordinate the kind of case studies so that you can see different financing strategies for different circumstances that one might encounter. So that's sort of that's kind of the gist. And as I said, I bring usually a property manager, and which I may not this year. We'll see how that goes. Although there's one that's going to be hanging around. So if you want to establish that contact, they may not present. But of course, I'll have a student who has a story to share with the student. So that's the layout.
Right.
Yeah.
Just getting your Rolodex is probably worth the price of admission. Because I want listeners to know, like, these people are not just specialists. You want the best one. There's lots of them who say they're specialists, but you want the best one.
You want the best ones, and you want people who are experienced. Same thing with a lender. I hear again, the people that I'm coaching right now, they went with some no-name lender that hardly does any multifamily deals. Imagine, I've seen that when I was at CMHC, some broker from obscure mortgage broker that hardly does any multifamily deals. And then the financing application, which obviously I cannot show because it's gone to the lender now, but it's twice as thick as this binder. It's about 3 inches thick with beautiful tabs because I'm anally retentive. It has to be freaking perfect because I teach this material, right? But those brokers, they don't do enough deals, multifamily deals, so they submit an application, a financing application that is so incomplete. And what do you think? As an underwriter, it's going to go right under the bottom of the pile. I'm going to work on the best, because I'm clocked, right? I'm timed, right? How fast I process an application. So that's the way of the world. That's how it works. So you need to work with specialists. It's critical. And again, amply covered in my workshop and in my training online or live event for sure.
High quality specialists.
Yeah, high quality specialists for sure. Yes.
All right. Last time we talked, this is my segue into Alberta. Okay. Last time we talked, it's been a while. It was just after the Fort McMurray fires.
No, I think we spoke last year, last spring. McMurray fire was almost 2 years ago this May. So last year we spoke.
Feels like it's
I'm
been
sure
longer.
We did.
Okay. What's
I
happened
know you're a
since?
busy guy. We're both busy. We do lots in the meantime, but no, it hasn't been that long. Yeah.
So for our listeners who didn't know, you were renting out rooms for free to victims of the Fort McMurray fires. What was
And buying food, and they had nothing. So I bought food, and I bought, a few dishes, a few things. Absolutely. Of course. Yeah.
wow.
You do a lot more charitable work than I do. Yeah, I do some, but I mean, yeah, but that's Alberta is something else. We all came together, just like now with the hockey team, the tragedy in Humboldt.
Yeah.
It's come together. But in this case, even across Canada. But yes, I believe in that. Yes.
So what else is going on in Alberta? Like, what's going on in the markets that you operate?
Well, my market, I can speak from behalf of all of Alberta. Things are still tough. And these are good lessons, and again, which I will share. So, just to recap a little bit, people have to appreciate. So, I'm a native from Quebec. So, obviously, a province I still know well, and I have most of my family still lives there. I spent a great chunk of my life in Ontario. I have 2 degrees from, U of T and Ottawa U, law degree in political science from U of T. So I have friends, family, also siblings in Ontario, and I get around. I travel all the way from Vancouver to Ontario, and for work, for teaching and speaking and all that. So I have a good sense of what's going on in this country. And in Alberta, the same thing. What we're experiencing in Alberta, it's funny because I was looking at the price of oil. I think we went up 95 cents today or something like that, almost by $1. As a real estate investor and a landlord, Erwin, I am learning new lessons in this current real estate market in Alberta. So on the face of it, if you look at stats, things are picking up. We are definitely out of the recession. What does that mean? GDP growth is there, the highest probably in Canada. Probably, but it's the highest in Canada. But first of all, what does that mean? Remember our good friend Don Campbell, peel the onion, right? Okay, we're going to have the strongest GDP growth. I'm going to go on. It's been a while since I've looked at the number. I think 3.7%. But we were at minus whatever for a few years before, so we're just catching up.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't, it is a stimulation of the economy, but you got to put it in perspective.
It's been a bit of a perfect storm to hurt Alberta
With the
as
NDP
well.
government and our buddy Trudeau, Justin, Mr. Selfie.
Yeah.
No kidding. It's a perfect storm. And then, of course,
NDP.
without talking about Mr. Horgan and BC, holy crap, enough already. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And as a real estate investor, I am getting smarter. So I'll get to your point. So I'm not defeated. I'm scarred. I have bruises. Okay, I'm not going to mince my words here. This is how I teach what I'm learning. But this is making me stronger as a real estate investor. Make no mistake, Erwin. And I do mean scars. I do mean that I've had to do cash calls. Okay, not fun. When I thought the smart aleck, former CMHC, underwriter, foresaw all the potential risk. Wow, recession lasting this long, this deep, with such fundamental changes. What are some of these changes, Erwin? So the price of oil now has recovered nicely. It was at the early 2016 at $30 a barrel. Now it's at 65. And remember when the crash occurred, 3 years ago, it was at $100 or so a barrel. Well, here's the thing. The price of oil is recovering, but here's the kicker. Technology in the oil and gas industry has evolved so that they don't need as much manpower, employees to run wells because there's been some technological advances, okay? So even though, the price of oil goes up, we are not feeling the impact in the real estate market. Why? Because first of all, as I said, they don't hire as many people anymore. They don't need because of new technologies in place. So that means that we don't have the same kind of in-migration that we used to have when there were recoveries in the past. And so our unemployment rate is around 6.5%, is not coming down much. The only reason it's come down a little bit from the 7% it was a few months ago is because some people have stopped looking for work. So what does that mean concretely for me as a landlord? Well, that means you got to be smarter. You got to do smarter marketing. You have to offer a better quality product. You got to really, really, really you got to integrate technology. As I said, I compete with smaller REITs in my market area. So that's what I'm doing. That means vacancies remain. They're not too bad in my case, but I spend a lot of money on marketing, and I do have a great website with the Google Analytics, so I know what time tenants are looking at renting my apartment, my units. Are they using a mobile device? Are they, that kind of stuff? That you have to be that smart.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this applies to everybody, all the landlords across Canada. If you're not integrating the newer technologies, even on pricing your units, right now there's something called a spider, I believe it's called, and it travels the web based on your postal code where your apartment building is located and comes up with your pricing should be at about this kind of thing. You got to be smarter, and that's what I'm doing. But it's been a tough ride. It's been a tough ride because in order to fill up our vacancies, we've had to give rental incentives. In that regard, because I come from Eastern Canada, that was my point earlier. In Ontario or even in Quebec, there are well-established markets. Your economies are not dependent upon the commodity market like we are here in oil and gas. So now that I know this, Erwin, I will do things differently from now in the future. I will probably hoard more cash. Before I pay, cash flow payouts to my shareholders, I will hoard more cash. I always had a contingency fund, one of the RAIN values, right, equivalent to 3 months of mortgage payments. Let me tell you, this time around, this is the worst recession in 30 years. It wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to do cash calls. And so I'm being very blunt, but yes, over time, this is just a little blimp over time of wealth creation, keeping again that vision in mind, why I'm doing this.
Right.
I am becoming a smarter real estate investor and landlord for sure.
With all these challenges, you're still buying another building.
Yeah, I have not in the last couple of years, to be honest with you, just because I needed to keep the current portfolio afloat. But yeah, listen, mark my words. You know what's coming next? I can tell you, right? What do commodities do? Gold, forestry, whatever. Right now it's going up again. We're gonna have a shortage of oil. Now we're still in an oversupply position. Mark my words, it's gonna go up again.
Mm-hmm.
It's all up and down, all up and down. It's gonna come back. I'm not worried about it because I have a long-term vision of where I'm going, and I guess I'm a bit smarter as a result of experiencing the worst recession since the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. A lot of people maybe on your show might remember the National Energy Program that former Prime Minister Trudeau, Pierre Trudeau, caused a lot of problems in Alberta. So this is the most severe recession since then. So since the early 80s.
Mm-hmm. Can you share your website? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Could you share? Because I want us to see what a good website looks like. You mentioned that your website's highly optimized for everything.
Okay, so this one is MatterhornApartments.com. Okay. Matterhorn.apartments.com. Now that's my real estate portfolio. It's not linked to the educational one, Erwin. That's something I intend to do in the next few weeks, actually. Mm-hmm. It's MatterhornApartments.com. And so the back end of it, I would highly recommend. So this is a product. Cool. Okay, let's talk about that. I have a new property manager. You're a techie. I can tell. I can see you, the beautiful microphone and the headset, the Beats headset. You're a techie.
I get by. Younger. I do what I need to do.
Well, I'm learning all that stuff, but I do appreciate it. So First National is one of my key lenders from Toronto, based in Toronto, First National Financial. And some of those, the shareholders and the managers there decided to create, it's called Landlord Web Solutions. Landlord Web Solutions. And you do need to have a significant amount of properties to make it worth the price, right? I mean, I think they were coming up with smaller products for people with a smaller portfolio. But this is the Cadillac. So like I said, I can see graphs. I can see at what time of the day people checked out my website to rent my units and all that, whether they used a mobile device, at what time of the day, the impact of my signage, which I didn't have until a couple of years ago. So how much traffic I'm getting through my signage and all of that. So these are the tools of the trade now that one has to get in order to remain competitive. And it's a brave new world. So very cool. But it's called Landlord Web Solutions. Max Steinman is one of the guys running it. Terrific client service, which is my pet peeve. I move my business away if people don't give me service. So, yeah. But people have to be aware of incorporating technology in their business, so the rental business for sure.
In case it helps, I think we've actually gone over half of my web traffic is mobile now.
Okay, good for you. Yeah,
I'm sure the same is for you.
Yeah, I haven't.
Especially if they see your signs.
Yeah.
they're not gonna wait to go home. They're break out their smartphone and check. Right.
Yeah, and stuff, if we want to expand a little bit on that, if you get a prospective tenant showing up and they want the suite, then you got your iPhone, you run the secure deposit right away, or you do the credit check right away, right? You don't wait, you don't lose that prospect. So all of that, pretty cool.
Nice.
No, pretty cool, Erwin, pretty cool. I'm very excited about that.
Very nice.
Yeah. No, you have to. This is the 21st century. You got to get with it.
Yeah, very nice. I like that.
Yeah,
because the technology exists. I don't know anyone who does it already for property management. Like you're showing the property, like you want the place, let's take a deposit, and
right there and then.
Yeah, because everyone has plastic. No one carries that much cash. No. You don't want people handling that much cash either.
But the large landlords, be sure, the large buildings that you see in downtown Toronto, they do that. The large landlords and the REITs, the pension funds that own these buildings, they all do that.
I like
that.
But
I'm saying that the technology now is becoming affordable for smaller landlords like myself.
Right.
So that's happening right now.
I'm going to discuss that with my property manager.
Who's your property manager? We need to talk about that. But anyway, maybe a different call.
Yeah, different call. You don't want. I've heard it termed the hug of death, when you mean well, but you just overwhelm someone with way too much business.
Yeah.
And then your own service levels fall apart, right?
I actually think, I know exactly. You make me smile because I think, I hear you. Been there, done that. Yep. So that's for the market. In a nutshell, Erwin, that's the market. We are recovering, but, and there'll be another boom because there's always a boom when you're involved in a commodity economy like Alberta. Yeah. But I'm learning valuable lessons, and I'm still happy to be doing this. Mm-hmm. But yes, I am slowly lining up to be in a purchase mode, acquisition mode again. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I just think it's interesting because I know quite a few people who are buying like Teslas and stuff, and I just feel bad for them when. Because I think the realities are, first of all, like if you're not plugged in at home and you need to plug in some on the road, like these things take forever. Like you go to the gas station, they have how many pumps, you're done in less than 5 minutes, right? You have to plug in a car, how long until you're done? And then when you find a plug, there's maybe one or two, and then how long does it take? You're going to have to go wait. And then there's the whole understand there's service issues with a lot of these electric cars as well. Like you don't know how long you're going to get your car until it's going to take to get your car back, and then we'll see what happens.
But this being said, so it's interesting. I love these conversations because like you, I'm passionate and I know my stuff inside out. I've had recently my shareholders are saying, well, we won't need oil anymore. Everybody's going to have a freaking Tesla or an electrical car. Excuse me, that ain't about to happen for quite a while, but it is. We are moving towards that. So the issue with the batteries is being solved. Now, here's a scoop, not a scoop, but a very fascinating video. Tony Seba, I think he's from MIT. Tony Seba, S-E-B-A. It's an hour-long presentation on this very topic. Fascinating. Okay, because they are solving these problems. They are developing that, and our friend Elon Musk is working on this stuff. I know there's experiments being done in Australia where they can supply entire cities with electricity. So that problem will be resolved because it's just like, our little iPhone, right? 10 years ago, to have the computing power we have on a $700 device, it would have costed hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, $700, it's amazing. So there's I forget the technical term, an agglomeration of various technologies can put together that will enable us to do that. So I do mind that from a real estate investor from Alberta. I do mind that. I do keep that in mind, right? Because everything about real estate investing is timing. Okay, so I'm keeping my eyes on that stuff also because sooner or later it will impact my investing strategy. Maybe it will be time to sell in 10, 15, 20 years, right? When I'm at the peak of the market. So I'm aware of these things and they are valid concerns, but not for a while. Right. Not for a while.
So you're not upgrading your buildings for parking with outlets?
No, I'm not nowhere near. And you know what? Given the size of this country and, here in out west, we have the distances are so vast, people are going to need cars. Yeah. Not worried about that.
You mentioned
so I'm not buying a Tesla. They went bankrupt anyway, right? So
they're expensive, by the way.
But they're going bankrupt, Erwin.
Really? You think so? I missed that.
No, I read so. Absolutely. He's gone bankrupt. He's going bankrupt. Tesla is in trouble. You didn't see that?
I missed it. I'm trying to cleanse myself from a lot of things. I just see too
Okay.
much
Well,
stuff.
sorry to break the news to you. This is real. I'll send you the link.
Send it to me because
This is happening.
we're in election season right now in Ontario, so I'm trying to like block out a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I do the same, but my daughter told me about that. Then I looked it up, and yeah, Tesla's going bankrupt.
I definitely want to see that.
You look disappointed, man. Did you order yours yet?
No,
Have you ordered
no,
your Tesla?
I'm not that forward thinking. I have concerns still about everything, and I'm not an early adopter, especially when it comes to vehicles. I won't even buy the first year of the model, right? I'm like that kind of, that's just pragmatic to me.
Yeah.
I thought it's a rule of thumb. Like, probably shouldn't buy the first 2 years of any sort of new model.
Yeah.
Like this is like earth-shattering new model stuff, like Model 3 I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, like I said, to me, I don't know. I'm not there. I drive my Ford F-150 like a good old redneck from Alberta. I'm very happy with it. Shoot my deer, put it in the back of the truck, and go home and drink my beer. I'm going to look it up while you look at that. But yeah, Tony Seba, very cool though. I mean, I think it's worthwhile. I mean, you have to have the macro picture as well as the micro picture,
Yeah.
I think, as entrepreneurs. So, but I'll look it up while and I'll send you the link, Tony Seba. But it is very cool.
It's very noble to try to have zero emission vehicles, but I also know that the reality is half of any vehicle's emissions are just in building the vehicle.
Yeah. But so I got it here. It's called Tony Seba. So Tony, Tony, Seba, Seba, clean disruption, energy and transportation.
Yeah.
But it is about this very topic. Very cool presentation, an hour long. Very, very cool.
Interesting. Okay.
Clean disruption, energy and transportation.
All right. Pierre-Paul.
It's going to happen. But we've got lots of time to make lots of money, buy more buildings and sell more. Believe you me. Lots of time.
So we're running out of time. So what are the dates? What dates do you have available in Hamilton? And there's no other dates then. So people are SOL if they don't go to Hamilton.
I don't know if I should tell you this. You interviewed one of my beta students on the online course, Tony Miller.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about it. Okay, cool.
But you called him Mr. Keyspire. Well, I may be Mr. Multifamily Keyspire. It appears. We'll see.
Good for them.
We'll see.
Oh,
That's in the works. So we'll see.
Good
so
for Keyspire members.
Well, I know a lot of people like you that are involved with them, and of course they're friends of mine, some of them that I know quite well, and every person said very positive things about Keyspire, so why not, right? So at this point I have one in Hamilton, May 25th, 26th, and 27th, but it appears that it is for sure I'll have one every year. Now, what I'm about to say is not to put pressure on people, but as you know, Erwin, because a lot of your folks and friends of yours or personal friends of yours came to mind last year, it is a small thing. I only have 50 seats available, and that's by choice because it's experiential to, make sure that we provide the highest quality of experience and learning because it's hands-on and logistically it would be complicated. So there's only 50 seats. So depending how it goes, but I may have it another once more this year. I don't know, but at this point I only have the one planned. I will have another one in Edmonton in the fall. I haven't set the dates, but it will happen.
Right.
It will happen. Yeah, and they can find this stuff, and I'm going to have a special link for your guys, which I don't have right now because as we speak, my consultant is working on that. But in the meantime, people can go to multifamilyinvestingcanada.com. and scroll down and check that out. It's very detailed, heavy content curriculum, very detailed. There's nothing like that in Canada. I know that much.
And you still offering the free book?
Yeah, the ebook is there. So when you go to multifamilyinvestingcanada.com, the ebook is still there. Very much relevant about concerning things that we talked about, planning, figuring out before you make a move, what do you need to, the kind of questions that you need to answer for yourself. You haven't asked me about the pipeline, though. Are you about to let me go before I can make a point on that?
Oh, I'd love to.
Are we out of time?
It's controversial. It's funny. Pipelines. Wow. I don't know if it's a good analogy, but I was thinking like I use a garden hose in my garden. I don't try to truck my my water to where it needs to go.
How often does your hose leak?
Well,
How long have you had the same hose?
so I have broken a hose before, but I knew it right away, so I stopped using it. You know.
Maybe you went to Walmart, bought a cheap one.
No, I was bad. I left it out too long in the winters and stuff. But no, like my
Oh,
hose doesn't leak.
now that's a different poor maintenance of your hose. But
Right.
you're making a valid point though. I tell you why I would like me to chat. I don't know what's the listener,
If you have
the
time,
readership.
if you have time for this, I
No,
totally
no,
want to have this conversation.
I definitely do, Erwin,
Okay.
and I appreciate you giving me that opportunity. How many people on this call generally listen to your podcast? I mean, I listen to many of them, but not all the time because I'm out of time. But how many people on this call?
Give me 1,000 to a couple of thousand.
Wow, man, you're awesome. I tell you why I want to speak to that. So, it's just the way I am. I'm well traveled and speak a bunch of languages and I get around, I travel and stuff. So I always, as much as I am also a micro guy and as a former lawyer as well, right? So I am a guy that can go from the micro, the dot on the I and the bar on the T
Hmm.
up to the world perspective. And it's just my nature, who I am. What I find in this debate, and I'm speaking to your folks in Ontario, and you know that a big chunk of my life, some of my best friends were made in Ontario, and like I said earlier, I have siblings, and I go there all the time. And then, my family, the rest of my family is in Quebec. There's a misunderstanding, the two solitudes, between East and West in Canada. This is what we're witnessing, and I used to be like you guys out East. I used to not care about the price of oil. I used to not know at all how much a barrel of the price of oil is because I didn't know how important it was to our country.
Yeah.
Well, now that I live here, I would like to, in a modest effort, to try to communicate that reality, how important it is to all of Canada.
Hmm.
It is 30% of our growth, our wealth in Canada, our GDP growth and our wealth in Canada is that oil that comes from Alberta. Okay? This is, how much a day in terms of, money? It's $42 million a day that we're losing, okay? And, when you live out East, this is a world I didn't know. Like, I look out, literally as I'm speaking to you, I see pumping jacks everywhere I look. This is my reality, so I have to be aware. And as a business owner and a landlord in Alberta, I have to be in touch with these things.
Hmm.
Now, as you said, your hose didn't leak other than the one you left outside all winter frozen, right? Currently, the Kinder Morgan, that pipeline to Trans Mountain is already there, has been there for decades, never had an accident. All we're talking about is putting another one, which, as you can imagine, if it's newer, should be better. And of course, the regulations are more stringent, is going to be running parallel to the existing one.
All right.
Hello? And so first of all, no, Erwin,
Should be pretty
please,
simple then.
I am imploring you people out East, and I'm one of the people from out East, educate yourself. This is 30% of Canada's wealth is coming from this place in Saskatchewan, northern Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
These are schools. These are, hospitals. These are services for the homeless. This is a serious, and it is a matter of national interest. And unfortunately, we're being hijacked by environmentalists. I'm a backcountry hiker. I've put a backpack on, and I've traveled all over the world with a backpack, but also here in the mountains. If somebody loves the environment, it's me. I take all my garbage out.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I teach my kids. This is not about being an environmentalist or not. It's not black and white. And unfortunately, and I send this to my kids. I want my kids, they're well traveled. We travel as a family a lot too, to be well educated. Some of the environmentalists that are protesting against the Trans Mountain pipeline are actually financed, by whom? This is no joke. This is factual. By charities from the U.S., okay? And the reality is completely distorted. Fake news is now a reality, okay? Why? Because who's taking up the market share in the meantime? Our friends to the south, Erwin. Our friends this is not some conspiracy theory that I'm telling you. These are factual. I can send you a bunch of articles every day because I do look at these things all the time. We're nice. Oh, excuse me, we're Canadian. We're Canadian, Sorry. Always say sorry. Come on. We have one of the best countries in the world. This is in my heart. I know this because I've been around and I've learned foreign languages, 4 or 5 of them almost. Let's stand for this great country of ours. In the meantime, Energy East, right? We turfed it. The freaking former mayor of Montreal that I unfortunately knew years ago personally. Well, so we'd rather, instead of using our clean oil, because we have some of the most stringent environmental policies in place in the world, we'd rather import it, from Nigeria or some other
Saudi.
or Saudi Arabia at a
Yeah.
premium. It does not make sense. So
We support
thank you
their
for allowing me
economies.
to rant. It's not a rant, guys, but like I said, when I was out east, living in Quebec or Ontario, I didn't know these things.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know better, and I apologize for this kind of. It sounded like a rant, but this is wrong. And I wish we had more leadership in Ottawa. We don't. They've done too little, too late. But we'll see how this turns out. But everybody's suffering. It's not just a West Alberta, Saskatchewan thing. Everybody, all you guys out east. Thank you for allowing me to put that in there. Now I feel better. Take a deep breath. I'm going to go to yoga class when we hang up.
It's a really difficult conversation, and I don't have it with people because I don't like to get political. But for example, like we talked about Humboldt, right?
Yep.
Like, thankfully they were carrying peat moss. What if they're trucking crude, right? And
the risk is significantly higher.
Yeah. And Lake Atlantic, for example, the train accident, right? Human error involved with driving trucks and driving rail, right? Versus a pipeline, like pragmatically. And I think what people forget also is one of the challenges with a democracy is the voters aren't necessarily educated. And so one of the challenges is well, first, Ontario, Canadians in general, we're not that great financially, individually, to the person. Good example, like just plain and simple, almost 2/3 of Canadians who don't have a pension will never retire. That tells you right there how bad we are with money. And now we're voting on financial policies, right? For example, no pipeline, I hear bad things. Right, there's some bad things that happen. But also understand, without oil from Alberta and Saskatchewan, there's no transfer payments from the West to come to Ontario and Quebec.
I didn't go there on purpose, but then you went so good. Yeah, that's
Right.
another factor. And my former province, or my native province, is a big recipient of those transfer payments.
Usually they're the biggest, I think. Well,
Yeah, it
for
is.
gross dollars, absolutely the
It is.
biggest. And then
It is.
Ontario is the second biggest.
I know that. I know that. And then I think it's somewhere out east in the Maritimes, New Brunswick, I think.
Yeah, Newfoundland, yeah. Like per capita,
Newfoundland,
they should
anyway,
be pretty high, right?
So yeah, these are facts, but like I said, also there's lobbying that's being done.
Right.
It's not right. It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. And then you just look at you look at each province's budget. Ontario, I'll speak to Ontario because I know it the best. What do we spend most of our money on? Education and healthcare, right? So
That's cost a lot of money.
it costs a lot of money because that's partly what makes our country great. But we need money.
If I had it, I think I took it down. And do you know how much the oil sands represent in terms of carbon emission in the world? Because I teach my kids. Like, I'm always a teacher. I do have a teaching degree. I didn't tell you about that. Did I put it away? I'm looking here on my wall. But so carbon emissions from the oil sands or oil production in Canada is like 0.015%. So are we going to solve that? We're not the problem. And we have stringent environmental guidelines and all of that. So,
here's another one. Here's another head scratcher. I'll try to find it. But I read previously that the emissions from the oil sands is equivalent to the car emissions of the Greater Toronto Area.
So there you go.
So, we want to stop the oil sands. We should stop driving as well in the Greater Toronto Area.
But that's unfortunately people don't understand it that way. But that's a fact, right?
Yeah.
It tells the whole story, right? And we live in a country, but we're not. But so what happens is our politicians are making us suffer. Yet it makes no difference in the big scheme. You know who the great polluters are, right? It's China, it's Asia, it's the U.S. for crying out loud. We're not making a dent into this issue, but we look good, and we'll have our selfie taken. You know who I mean, with everybody. And sorry, guys, but yeah, I've learned better. I used to not be aware of these issues, and I've educated myself. Like I said, I'm no longer that civil servant in a cubicle at CMHC. I'm a business owner, and listen, Erwin, I sign petitions now. I send letters to with regards to politics, even the tax reform last year that our current federal government tried to impose that was detrimental to all of us. I sign all these petitions now. I send letters to my MP. I have never been this involved before in my life because I get it now. I get it. I'm very much aware of these issues. Yeah.
It's a fun time.
You always have a smile on your face. I love it. I love it. That's
You
great.
can't help but smile. Or you make the decision to move to Belize or something.
Well, I'm going to book that after we hang out. I almost did it earlier this morning. I ran out of time. So,
Because
yeah,
this is a great country, and
it's an amazing
yeah.
country. Let's do it justice, for crying out loud.
Hmm.
Let's do justice. I am so proud of being Canadian. I could not have conceived, this is me when I was a teenager. You hear me speak English now, right? I learned at U of T because by the time I got to U of T in 1980, no, 83, I spoke Italian, Portuguese, and Italian better than
Wow.
English. And I didn't pass my English proficiency test when I was admitted at U of T. So I had to take an ESL course. This is no joke. But to me, I love this country. I could not conceive not to learn English, being a French Canadian, being from Quebec. I love this country. Love this country. Love this country. Yeah, very
Awesome.
much.
All right, one last time, Pierre-Paul. I'm taking up for your time. One last time, website.
Multifamilyinvestingcanada.com, and we'll send you another link as well. I'll send you an email. It's being done. I don't know if he sent it while we were speaking, but another link. But so before we go off, I look up to you, Erwin. How do you pronounce your family name, by the way? I've never known. Zito?
And we pronounce it. I can't even say I pronounce it properly either. But
Really?
properly pronounced as Cito. But then for
Zito.
simplicity, for people from my area, I just tell them like the manager of the Blue Jays was Cito Gaston. So if you say it's Cito, that's pretty cool.
Erwin, I look up to you. I think you from where I stand, you look like you have the perfect life. You're awesomely fit.
Ah.
Oh, I see those pictures on Facebook and stuff. You got a beautiful family. You're generous as hell. You work for charity. So what can I do to help? Should I, so can we raise money on this call? Will people can we have a bidding? Give a discount on my course of my live event or something like that? What can I do to help some of the causes that you support, Erwin? And I mean this. I really mean this. What do you have any ideas here on the spot? I'm putting you on the spot, but what can I? I'd be willing to give a discount. $1,000 discount. My stuff is high priced. It's high priced because the value is there and it's proven products and all of that. So I'm willing to offer $1,000 discount. So if somebody's willing to take me up, and usually we're still finalizing the pricing. The pricing on this. Well, I've kind of done it because my consultant is putting it on the website. So should I divulge the price on this website or
If
not?
you like, it's not necessary. Because I'm in the business of helping investors too. I got a text this morning that my client's refinancing his property for $150,000. I think he paid $170 for it. So when people invest in education, it's knowledge is power.
Yeah, but I'm trying to see how we could raise money to help the charities that you support. Would that be a good thing? How can we do this?
Oh, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But so you're familiar with what we used to do. So something that we're trying different for Thanksgiving is we're trying to go deeper with with the families.
Okay.
So instead of we fed 350 families for Easter.
Yeah.
The plan for Thanksgiving is we're gonna adopt 50 families.
Okay.
So the budget will go like 3 to 5 times what we used to pay per family in order to provide them underwear, some toys, maybe some food.
Okay.
Some winter clothing because it's damn cold here where we live.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, that's what we're doing. If your students would like to adopt a family, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, I'm going to work something out on that. So I might do that also when I'm in the Edmonton. I'll do something. How's that? You have my commitment. I want to get back to you. And because you're somebody I look up to and admire, I would like to do something. And as you know, I do the same. As you know, we sponsored my buildings sponsored 2 children in Africa. You see, and just let me reach out a little bit here. But you know what I'm saying? What drives me, and this is in my presentation. People sign up at multifamilyinvestingcanada.com. I've just finished shooting a series of 5 videos. I'm providing content. But you know what drives me? So now when I look around my office, I've got all these pictures. Right? This is Samuel from Brazil that one of my buildings is sponsoring. Right? This is Amina, right, from Kenya, that my buildings are sponsoring, and I could go on. I've got a few of these, right? Every month, my buildings are sending money to these kids, 50 bucks a month for books and education. You know, this is the privilege that we have to be self-employed, to be entrepreneurs, to give back, and so I'll do something. You and I will communicate, but I'll do something to support your charity, Erwin,
Thank you,
because
Kelly.
I'm very grateful to you. How's that?
Well, in case people don't realize, like, I don't ask for anything for this. I just want people to have,
This is completely improvised. I take the blame. I take full responsibility.
And I never ask Pierre-Paul for anything in return. I just want people to have good content, because I think we both know there's a lot of people that just that don't have people's best interests in mind.
Yep. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. We've got a few case studies, like I said, that I'm helping out these days on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Awesome, Erwin. So listen, thank you so much, and multifamilyinvestingcanada.com. Next live workshop is on May 25th, 26th, and 27th. Only 50 spots. So I got a bunch of people that I'm working with. Last year we sold out. We only had 30 spots. This year we're able to increase slightly, but it's never going to be more than 50 people. I expect again to sell out just because I'm working with a number of large people to do this. And if not, the online course is also available.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And live is best. It's just, if it's not live, I just get distracted.
Let me give you a hint. The bundle, the pricing, so I'll leave it for people to look up on the website, which is again multifamilyinvestingcanada.com. But you can get, for the same price, you can get both live and as long as we have seats available, obviously, and then the online as well for the same price.
Excellent.
Of the live event. So we do have a bundle package that you can buy.
Excellent. All right. Thank you again for doing this, Pierre-Paul.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Erwin. You take care.
All
Cheers.
Right. And it's nice to have someone to talk politics about and pipelines and oil, because usually it's a touchy subject and people don't come prepared to talk about it.
Well, I think I did it with class, but we talked facts. Facts, that's what matters. Facts is what matters. So.
Yeah, and it's tough stuff, which is why the politicians make the big bucks and get those big pensions.
Different politicians, if you ask me.
Very good. All right, thanks again.
You take care. Cheers.
I'll talk to you soon.